Assalamualaikum warahmatullah, guys. Welcome back to our discussion on the Shariah Governance Policy document and how we can remedy this Rule 78. And as the policy was saying, that it is meant to reinforce closer integration of Sharia consideration in the business and risk strategy of the Islamic financial institution. So we're referring to how Sharia governance can be impacting the banking commercial policy. So this is indeed a very new and a brave move by the Central Bank of Malaysia to enhance Sharia governance in Islamic banking. And we can look at the document, the guideline, which is in section 8.1, where it is stated here, the board oversight accountability over Sharia governance and the compliance must reflect the integration of Sharia governance consideration within the business and risk strategy of the Islamic financial institution. So this is a very direct and constructive and positive effort by the regulator, Bank Negara Malaysia, to enhance Sharia governance into dealing with banking commercial policy. And then when we look at the Rule 78, where we can see that it has been, has been said to be unfair rule for early settlement of loan and finance. And as we have shown earlier, that if we got a monthly payment of 2028.53, and then the bank will be collecting 1500, which is 73% of the total monthly payment, and the customer will be allocated 528.53 as principal payment, which is only 27% of the total monthly payment. And then as we see that banking risk mitigation strategy, so this can be a bank risk mitigation strategy to prevent customer from abusing the loan facility in, say, speculative property purchases. So this is a risk mitigation, and at the same time, bank wanted to recognize profit as soon as possible before any impending moral hazard can take place. But there are some customers who are genuine, to settle debt due to needs. So they are not speculators; they are genuine people who are in need of this facility to settle the debt early due to some emergency or some issue that they need to settle without any malice. Then we can see here this issue of Rule 78. Now, is it a Sharia or ethical issue? So when we are dealing with the Sharia governance policy framework, where it desires Sharia governance to look into banking commercial policy, so this particular Rule 78, is it, number one, a Sharia issue? So if it is a Sharia issue, then it will be looked into by the Sharia committee. So Sharia issues are basically those related to contracts, transaction and dealing of Islamic banks, and also there are other issues related to distribution of profit and losses to the investment account holder, and then the derecognition of non-halal income, zakat obligation of Islamic bank, and the reporting of Sharia non-compliance events. So these are under the Sharia issue to be reported by the chairman of the Sharia committee of the respective banking company. Ethical issues are quite difficult to identify to what extent it is related to Sharia. But generally, when we look at ethical issues in banking, we are referring to the Bank Code of Ethics, number one. And that would be related to the value of competence, integrity, and fairness that all banking people must have in their, in operating their respective business unit. The other more important one, or equally important one, is Board of Director fiduciary duty and oversight function, right? So these are the ethical issue or ethical position that need to be defined clearly, how the board will behave and how the people will behave in expediting their respective role in the banking business. And then we are trying to see who will be responsible, to tackle this issue of Rule 78. Is it Bank Negara, or is it the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs? I presume that both, institutions will play a very important role in making sure that this Rule 78 is properly handled, especially under Islamic banking business. And finally, when we look at the Sharia governance policy framework, and when we are trying to say whether it is or not possible to integrate Sharia governance with bank business and risk strategy, then again, as I say, Sharia governance is very clear. This we can look at the document from the report of the chairman of the Bank Sharia Committee, and as I say, there are 5 items that the chairman of the Sharia Committee will be reporting. And these are, as I say, related to product, transaction and dealings, distribution of profit and losses to the investment account holders, the recognition of haram income, zakat obligation, and the reporting of the Sharia compliance event. And if this Rule 78 is to be found, to affect these 5 items, then I presume that this Rule 78 will be put into the agenda of every meeting of the Sharia Committee. However, when we look at bank business and risk strategy, so we are actually referring to quite a complicated and complex situation, because when we are referring to bank business strategy, we may refer to bank business model, what kind of modality the bank is using in maximizing profit. Is the bank going for personal financing model, or they're going to go for investment banking model, or some Islamic bank give focus to sukuk issuances. Some Islamic banks are giving more attention to personal financing. What are the risk appetite that are acceptable? How do we do pricing? And how profit is recognized, capital allocation, and there are so many other issues under bank business and risk strategy that the Sharia governance must be able to consume and understand, and therefore having understand the complication and the excitement, in the bank business and risk strategy, then this issue of Rule 78, compounding of profit rates, and the use of flat rate over declining method can be tackled by the Sharia governance to what extent this so-called unfair business practices to be considered as a Sharia issue, or to be considered as ethical issue, no longer be the main hindrance, because now we see that this Rule 78 and so on, these are practices that come within bank business and risk strategy, and therefore how the Sharia governance can interact or can impact this issue, then the board of directors are wholly responsible to ensure that the interaction of the Sharia committee and board committee and the Sharia and the board of directors mandate are harmonized, and therefore we can be able to find a good way how to get rid of this Rule 78 and many other unfair practices that were not in the ambit of Sharia governance, but they are still unethical issue that need to be investigated and provide a decent solution to benefit the consumer, inshallah. So please there are many more discussion on this matter, and I hope that you can give your comment and your please share this idea and subscribe as well, because as we go on, there can be many ideas that is coming, which I presume that all of us can share and improve our understanding what's going on in the Islamic banking business. Thank you very much. I'll see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.